Hello, YouTube. I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We have a question here from YouTube user Michelle M4466, who says, I am currently pursuing a sexual harassment retaliation case. Okay, Michelle, real quick, I'm going to assume that there is both a sexual harassment claim and a separate retaliation claim. I'm going to answer this question in that context. If that is not correct, if that is not accurate, comment below, and I will try to make you a follow-up video under the corrected information. She goes on, my attorney calculated my damages to be $2.6 million. During mediation, the employer continued to victim blame me and insinuated that the event was my fault. We started in the high six figures, and they countered, offering $500. I was beyond insulted. Why would they be so resistant towards settling? This is a mental health facility, so it's going to harm their reputation. My case is an open and shut case. I was sexually harassed by a client. That's why. I heavily voiced my concerns. 4 days later, I was fired. 1 week later, they replaced me with a friend who I referred them to before being fired. Everything is documented, and I have witnesses willing to testify. Why won't they settle? Are they that egotistical? No. So, listen, Michelle, this sucks to say. It sucks for me to say this. So, situations, especially working at a mental health facility, where you are sexually harassed by a patient are far more complex and far harder to litigate, right? If you're sexually harassed by your manager, that's the best, right? Like, that's the best claim. Someone in your chain of command above you, that's super strong. If you're sexually harassed by a peer, like a coworker, a similarly situated peer, as we say in this industry, that is also a solid, good potential claim. Getting sexually harassed by a subordinate, still a claim. No question. It is a little bit more difficult, a little riskier, a little more complex than the other two. And then the bottom of the barrel in terms of sexual harassment claims is being sexually harassed by a client, and then or a customer. And I'll go a step further. I assume, because you say you're working at a mental health facility, that you've been sexually harassed by someone who's dealing with some mental health issues. Here's the thing. The facility has every duty and responsibility to keep you safe. No question. It is still a claim if they failed in their duty to keep you safe. However, the idea that your attorney, and listen, I don't know the context here. I don't know what happened. I don't know the claim. Not in any way saying you didn't go through a horrible experience. I'm not. So I want to be clear. I don't know what went on. But I will say this. I have never in my career seen sexual harassment by a patient in a mental health facility, which is incredibly common in this industry. We see this all the time. This happens all the time, right? Unfortunately, this is one of the severe dangers of your line of work, right? I have never seen a sexual harassment event perpetrated by a resident or a client of a mental health facility go for 7 figures. Never, not once. You can't quote me on this, but I'll say this. I don't think I've ever seen sexual harassment by a patient in a mental health facility go for over $300,000. Best recollection, never, not once. Let me stress, please, again, I'm not belittling what happened to you. I don't know what happened to you. I'm sure you would not pursue a claim if it was not serious and egregious and horrible. Same page with you, I hope, on that. But the idea that there's a $2.6 million valuation on that claim when you were probably earning less than $150K if you're working in a mental health facility, assuming you're a doctor or a nurse or any other role in that facility, generally those, there's not the highest rate of pay. So in most of the country, right? So your economic damages are going to be not the best. There's a termination, so that's great. It's great for your damages. Sounds like they're claiming you may have broken a policy or done something that was against their rules. Obviously, I don't believe them, but that's the argument it sounds like they're going with here, right? It sounds like they're saying we had to terminate. She didn't follow the rules. That seems like the argument they're going with. If it is true that in the course of events you broke their policies or broke their rules, it is possible they will get away with the termination. Because those rules, they're going to argue, were there specifically to keep you safe from sexual harassment from patients or sexual assault or something even worse, right? Like really horrible things happen. And I don't know what kind of patients are in your facility. I don't know if they're able to control themselves. I don't know if they're aggressive, physically aggressive. I have no idea, right? I'm not making assumptions. Again, have to stress, I don't know the context. But I can tell you flat out, what is emboldening them here is that it was sexual harassment from a patient, a client, as you say, of your facility, your mental health facility, and they seem to believe that they can prove that you broke a policy. That's why they're saying it's your fault, right? They're victim blaming. Here's the thing. If there's like a rule, and I've litigated this cases like this, not your case obviously, but cases where there's like a standing rule. Hey, nobody goes into patient room C alone because the patient in patient room C is physically aggressive and moreover has physical aggression towards women and sexual aggression towards women, so we don't go in alone. That's the standing rule. Everyone knows. And if you just ignored that rule, and I'm not saying you did. But it seems like they're making the argument that you ignored a rule. They're not necessarily going to be viewed as retaliating if they had a set rule that you broke. And you can make the argument it's retaliation. And you can make the argument that they haven't enforced that rule before, or it's disparate enforcement. There's a lot of arguments you can make. A lot of really good arguments you can make. I'm not saying your case is bad. But their argument's going to be, hey, we have mental health patients here. I don't know what level of capacity they have. I don't know how well or unwell these people are. But we have these rules in place to keep both our staff and our patients safe, right? Prison guards have rules in place to keep the prison staff safe and the inmates safe. I'm not comparing mental health patients to inmates. I'm not, but it's the same idea. The rules are in place to keep everyone safe. So if you ignore the rule that keeps the patient safe and yourself safe, the employer is going to have a pretty solid argument of, hey, Michelle broke the rule that was meant to keep the patient safe and Michelle safe. We can't have that. We can't imperil our patients. We can't imperil our staff. We have to let Michelle go. She knew the rules. She broke them. That's the argument they're trying to make. Again, I'm not saying your case is bad, but if there is truth to the argument they're making, then that is or if they can make the appearance of truth to the argument they're making, that is a very strong argument. Because you engaged in breaking a rule. I'm not saying you did. This is hypothetical. This is what they're claiming. You engaged in breaking a rule that put yourself at risk, right? Hypothetically, if you're working on scaffolding and you have a safety line rule, like you always have to have 2 safety leads attached because they don't want people falling to their death, and you just start walking around without a safety lead, Can you be fired for that? Yeah, of course. 100%. Can you be fired for that in the middle of a discrimination case? Maybe. We can argue it's retaliatory, but at the end of the day, that employer is going to be like, yo, we've had 7 people over the history of our company walk around without safety leads, and we fired all 7 of them. This is the only one that had a discrimination case going, so it's not retaliation. That's a really good argument, right? But here it's a step further. It's not just you putting yourself at risk, what they're contending, right? What they're actually contending is it's you putting yourself at risk, which is bad for the company, but also you putting the patient at risk. The patient who was in that facility specifically in part to be kept safe. The patient, and I don't know what the patient's dealing with in terms of mental health, but the patient could have reduced capacity. The patient could have impulse control issues. The patient could have sexual aggression issues. So by breaking that rule, you've put yourself at risk, but also the patient at risk. And the employer is then going to have quite the argument that, hey, we had to fire. We had to fire. Listen, we loved Michelle. Michelle was a great part of the team. We miss her. But at the end of the day, she put herself and a patient at risk, and we can't have that. That's a fairly good look for them. That's a fairly good argument. I'm not saying it's going to win the day, but I am saying it introduces a tremendous amount of risk to your case. So you might need to have a kind of a frank conversation with your attorney. With your attorney, like, hey, have you run cases like this before? With a client in a mental health facility being the perpetrator of the sexual harassment? Have you done this before? Are you incorporating the risk of this allegation that I broke the rules into your valuation? Right, so you value the case. Your attorney valued the case at $2.6 million, which maybe, I guess they must have assigned some value to the punitive damages, which is tough to do, but okay, fair enough. Or the sexual harassment that occurred to you was so horrific that the emotional damage component is huge. Right, those are the 2 things that are probably going on if you're getting a $2.6 million valuation. The third thing that could be going on is your attorney doesn't know what she or he is doing. Just real talk, because that, given what you're saying here, some stuff just doesn't really make sense. I don't know the context of your case. This could all make sense if I knew everything about the case. Just saying, based on what you're saying here, it's a lot of nope from me. It's a lot of, yep, that doesn't make sense. Again, it's probably just, I don't know the situation. Probably all it is. But wouldn't hurt to have a conversation with your attorney like, hey, have you done this before? How are you accounting for the fact that it was a client? Are you worried about the idea that this argument that I broke the rules? Have you thought about that? In your settlement demand, did you hedge for risk introduced by that concept? Have you found out if other people who broke the rules, as they are alleging I broke the rules, have those other people been terminated? Or is it just me? Because if it's just you, fantastic. That's really good. Disparate enforcement. This is retaliation because Michelle raised the complaint. Let's go. That's a fight. Like we can let's go. We're in the game, right? But if it's similar to the safety lead situation where like, yeah, 7 people broken the rules over the course of the past 10 years, all 7 were fired, then if they can demonstrate you broke that rule, I fear your retaliation claim might be a very low percentage of success. Extraordinarily low. And the sexual harassment claim, well, what do they do about it? How are they ensuring your safety? That's going to be a complex one as well. Clearly, you were wronged. Clearly, you were harmed. No question. No question at all. And again, these are for conversation. This is just food for thought for conversations with your counsel, because they don't know the situation. But it's a very complex case with a lot of risk factors, with an employer who seems very confident. There's a chance they have some very good arguments that you might need to take a look at and have some serious conversations with your counsel about, like, hey, this settlement amount that we've started off with, which looks like the high six figures, seems to be a non-starter. They're at $500. They're clearly not interested in negotiating against that. Is it something, do we want to take this to trial, attorney? Have you done a trial, attorney? Do you have a trial attorney in your firm? Like, what are our prospects at trial? Are you willing to, like, front the expenses for federal litigation for me, attorney? Or is this like a settlement run and you've never really done this before and you don't have the war chest or the skill set to do trial for me, right? Like, I don't know the situation. Broken record. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the context. I don't know what happened to you. I'm so sorry it happened to you. But a lot of things you wrote here give me concern. I just want you to get answers. That's all I'm saying. I just want you to get some answers. So, Michelle, one, I'm really sorry something bad happened to you. I don't know specifically what it was, but I'm sorry you experienced sexual aggression of any kind. And I'm sorry that this employer is playing hardball with you. I'm sorry that this negotiation process is not going smoothly. I want you to get paid. I want you to be made whole. I want the wrongs righted. I want you to be rehired if you want the job. I don't know if you want the job, but if you want the job, listen, I want you to be back there. And I'm so sorry that I had to be really negative in this video. I just think there's some things that alarm me that I want you to address. That's all I'm saying. All right. Like, subscribe, comment down below. If this video was helpful, it will help our channel grow. Take care, Michelle. Good luck. I hope you're okay.